Hi guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we have a little bit different of a video format with more b-roll and me speaking into the mic. I just wanted to try that out and see how it works. Anyways, the topic today is, how do you get into Airsoft? Speaking of gear and all the stuff you need, what you should prioritize, and then also a little bit of the brands that you should look for. However, I will do a more detailed video on repro gear in the near future. So yeah, getting started in Airsoft. So here's a really general list of what you will need. You obviously need at least one gun. You need clothes and shoes, boots or sneakers, whatever. Depends on where you play. And obviously gear, like a helmet, plate carrier, anything to hold your stuff. And in terms of buying that stuff, I would actually go and prioritize them in the order that I just listed. So first you buy a gun, then some clothes, and then gear. Reason is, you obviously need a gun. The gun is the most important part, because if you can't even hit your enemies, it doesn't matter how good your cry precision gear is, you can't even hit the enemy, right? You're gonna die anyways. Secondly, clothes. You're gonna wear your clothes more than your gear, in terms of, you'll replace some parts when you play carrier or your helmet, but a good base of like decent clothes will get you a long way in terms of staying camouflaged, not getting wet or dirty, or it ripping on you mid-game. So yeah, that's an important factor. And then lastly, the gear, because after you know what kind of type of gun you have, how many mags you bought and stuff, then you can start looking into how many pouches you need, etc., etc. Now, starting with the first topic, gun. If you have, like, let's just say you have $1,000 budget, could be higher, could be lower, whatever. I would say that your gun budget should be the highest in terms of $1,000, at least 30% to 45%. Reason being, if you have a good gun setup from the start, you're gonna have much more fun, and you won't have to upgrade it down the line later on when you might want to allocate more budget to your gear. So some things to look out for is it's metal. I know it might weigh more, but it's more durable if you absolutely eat shit on the airsoft field. Something you should also look out for is good inner parts. So it should at least have a MOSFET, decent MOSFET, so it doesn't jam up on you or fry anything in there. If it's an AEG, which I recommend going for, because these are more durable in cold weather than GBBs, and they're less complicated for beginners. Also, you could look into getting used guns, but I'll get into that later on, because these might be tuned by the previous user, which could give you better performance. I did the same. Now that you've looked that it's metal, has good inner parts, you should buy a good battery and a decent charger. You can buy these cheap chargers off Amazon. I have them too. They work fine for now. But get a good battery, that way they will hold the entire game day. And also, you should know what types of measurements you should look out for when buying a battery, but I will not do a guide on that, because Airsoft GI and other channels have made way better videos on these topics. Right, and after all of that, you can finally buy an optic. Vector Optics is good for that, or other repro brands, but in general, just buy a decent optic. It doesn't need to be fancy, and it also doesn't need magnification. And when you've settled all of that, and maybe already gone to your first game day, you can finally buy, a light or laser for your gun, if these are legal in your country. Germany, these aren't. Now that you know all of this, you obviously want to buy a gun. So what type of brands should you look out for? I don't have any experience with the airsoft market in the US. I can only speak for Germany/Europe. But good brands over here are definitely Spec Arms for beginners with good quality yet budget rifles. Tsuma is also decent. However, their guns look kind of airsofty. They don't look like real guns. Spec Arms has more like realistic guns like the HK416, Euro GI, all of that. And then there's Bugatti. They're kind of like a more upper tier type of brand in terms of pricing also, especially with their Bugatti sports line. These are great rifles. I have one as well, so these are definitely up there. And also a good tip that I've mentioned before is buying used guns. Reason being that people who spend a lot of money on like a gun and also tune it might realize that they don't have enough time to actually play airsoft anymore, or for whatever reason they sell a really good gun at a, well, you could say net loss. So you buy like a $500 gun for like $300, which can be great, which would happen to me. And also, if you get lucky, you can buy a lot of like starter packages, you could say, where people sell the gun, 5 mags, chargers and batteries. Now obviously you should also buy different batteries if the batteries are bad, but again, you can score really lucky strikes on used guns. So definitely keep an eye out for good offers on the internet. So now that you've got a gun, you obviously need clothes. These should make up about less than 20%. So in our example, $200, since one pair of trousers, a shirt, and if you don't already have them, some decent boots, shouldn't run you more than that in airsoft quality. But I think every guy should have boots already laying around somewhere, since you're a guy. Go outside, dude, go in the forest, do stuff. Anyways, the first decision should be determining what camo you want to use. Basic bitch thing would be multicam, since it works in a lot of environments. However, if you want to settle on a different type of camo that you like more in terms of aesthetics or usefulness, such as M81 Woodland, Rhodesian Bush Stroke, or Flecktarn, whatever fits your needs or autism, find a pair, but remember, it should also be decent quality. So speaking of quality, or more like brands, Gear and Krydex are really good for what you're paying, like really good. However, they only offer green, tan, multicam black, and multicam black. The next option would be Emerson Gear. Emerson Gear is up there, one of the best, especially budget repros. Their G3 pants run you about $120 over here in Europe, and you can have them in all the different colors, from multicam tropic to normal multicam. There's just a lot of options that you have with Emerson Gear. Another option would be Halicontex. They're kind of more budgety, they're kind of a below Emerson Gear. However, they offer a lot of different camo patterns, such as Rhodesian Bush Stroke, which is pretty good. Another option would be AliExpress. There are various sellers on there that offer good quality clothes. One would be, I think, Mia SMPT or something like that. They also have an Instagram account, so you can check out a lot of AliExpress sellers on Instagram. And obviously there is Surplus, which cannot be overlooked, since it's good enough for grunts and it's good enough for airsoft, right? And another important piece of gear you should have is knee pads. If you buy Cry style knee pants, you will have knee pads already, but if you don't, you can buy Emerson Gear knee pads in the style of the Arc'teryx ones, which are fantastical. I have them as well. I can guarantee you knee pads make life a lot better when you have to kneel on like asphalt or something for like 20 minutes. Now finally we can nerd about the best thing ever, gear. The rest of your budget can be advocated for this. There are two things that you will definitely need, which is headgear and a plate carrier / chest rig. I would say as a beginner you don't really need a belt, unless you really need a secondary. For example, in some fields here in Germany, if your rifle is above, let's say, 1.5 joules, you need a secondary for shorter range engagements. But as a beginner, you don't really need a secondary, so we will leave the belt out first and just go over the basics that you need. For your head, I would definitely recommend getting a helmet, because getting shot in the head from very close distances hurts. A helmet can prevent that, and also if you hit your head or you fall down, I would say get a good bump helmet. doesn't weigh as much, leaves you with breathability, and so looks good. Best brand for that is undisputedly FMA, especially for the price. And for that helmet you will likely need like a headlamp or something, but that isn't really necessary. You can get repro Princeton Tech lights on AliExpress for like 20 bucks, so that should be easy. You will also need something to protect your eyes, so some good rated safety glasses. Don't buy cheap ones, don't cheap out on your eyesight, get good glasses. And then also I would recommend a mouth protector, something to protect your teeth, because getting your teeth shut out isn't cool. You can take a shot to like the cheek or something, or in the lip, that will heal, but a missing teeth doesn't. That's just not possible unless you're like 4 years old. But I think if you play Airsoft, you're like at least 10. For the sake of this video not being an hour long, if you would need more information on headgear such as protection gear for your eyes and such, check out my video on my helmet setup, where I've explained pretty much everything you need to know. Moving down to your plate carrier / chest rig, you first need to see or look what kind of plate carrier you need. Do you need a slick carrier? Do you want an overt one, so not really slick but not really like bulky? Or do you want like a really bulky setup such as a ABS or a CPC or something like that? If you're just a basic Airsoft newbie, just go with a slick / overt plate carrier. Examples would be a Repro Slickster or LV119, maybe a FCPC or a Cry JPC, Cry SPC, something like that, but in Repro. Good brands for that would be, for example, Pure Tactical. Although expensive, they're really good, and I would also use them for real steel just because of the quality. Another option would be, I think, Check-in Gears, Emerson Gear, or just in general AliExpress sellers. However, make sure that the products that you want to buy on AliExpress that aren't from like name brands have good reviews, preferably with pictures, although that's not really too needed. But with plate carriers, I've always only trusted reviews with pictures. For pouches, again, it's not that deep. Just look that the product that you're buying has good reviews. If you want to make sure that it's good quality, again, Pure Tactical, FMA, Emerson Gear, they're all there, and they do good stuff. Also, buy some thick foam dummy plates, just so your plate carrier doesn't look like a sack of shit hanging on another sack of shit. Now, moving down to your belt. For your belt, I would say, again, Pure Tactical is really good for like a high price, but then again, Ido Gear, Tridex. I myself use an Ido Gear belt, but you can also get some belts from AliExpress, like the Faro, I think Bison it's called, with good reviews. Again, as long as the reviews are fine, the product's fine as well also. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The belt is kind of like a thing for people that actually have some clue of what they're doing in Airsoft. So I think if you're considering buying a belt, you've already had some game days and know a lot more about gear than a complete cold beginner. Now, before I close this video up, I just need to mention some really important things. For example, in Germany, when transporting an airsoft rifle above, 0.5 joules, you need a closed-off container for that rifle. So I think it is important that when calculating your budget for the gear, you should also calculate what it would cost to buy like a cheap little box, bag, or whatever for your gear or your gun, so you can transport it, because otherwise you'll just be huffing and puffing with like 4 backpacks or something onto the field. So yeah, buy a decent gear bag or something like that. Tons of stuff out there, especially in the US, for like a really good price. Now, that is everything you need to know for beginning in Airsoft in terms of what you need to buy. So yeah, I hope this video helped some of you, or just found it entertaining while, I don't know, sitting on the toilet, eating your lunch or whatever. I might do a more in-depth buyer's guide for like repro gear or something in the future. But yeah, that's that for now. I hope this kind of video format also is good for you guys. I found it fun to experiment with. So yeah, that's it for now. See you in the next one. And yeah, LARP.